Thank you, everyone who's joined us for tonight's event. My instinct is to say again, I said tonight or to say good evening, but as I was saying earlier to those of us that joined a bit beforehand, we've got people joining from across the globe, so it's perhaps morning or midday or afternoon, but regardless, welcome. It's certainly a diverse audience as well. I know for a fact that we've got students, we've got alumni, we've got parents of alumni, we've got current staff, former staff, members of other UWC schools, and just interested educators from many other institutions. So we hope that we're going to have a wonderful conversation tonight. We hope you enjoy the conversation, and our intent is for this to be an interactive evening. I'm going to start with some housekeeping. As you have probably figured out already, the format is a Zoom meeting, so you will have the ability to turn on your microphones and your cameras. But for the time being, we do have a panel discussion, so if you'd leave your microphones on mute, but seeing your faces is a great thing. I'm sure you also got the notification that this session is being recorded. We do hope to share this in different formats with those who weren't able to attend tonight. And then for those of our alumni in the audience, and perhaps even some of the teachers and former teachers, maybe if you could just put into your Zoom name what year you graduated from campus or last left, so that we can help sort of identify you and know that when you were with us at the college. So it's been an exciting, albeit challenging start to the new academic year. That's probably the understatement of the year for some people on the call. And of course, it's our 50th anniversary here at UWC SEA. So we had a wonderful kickoff to our anniversary year last month with our alumni reunion. And then we moved quickly into September and our annual UWC Day Celebrations. So for those of you who may not be familiar, UWC Day is the annual global celebration of the UWC mission and its values. And it takes place on the 21st of September every year to coincide with the UN International Day of Peace. It's an opportunity for us to celebrate the strength and diversity of the UWC movement and our mission for a more peaceful and sustainable future through connecting and mobilizing UWCers globally. It serves as a chance to spread the good word about UWC, our work and our values, and an opportunity to reflect on what we do as a movement, to determine how to be more effective change makers, and to continue to challenge ourselves. So that same week, UWC SEA hosted the 5th in our Kishore Mabubani speaker series, where our series patron, Kishore Mabubani himself, joined UWC SEA's college president, Karma Elliott. And they had a fireside chat that was themed Perspectives on Peace. Together, they discussed topics including reflections on the influence of internationalism in the past and the future, responding to change, ASEAN in the post-pandemic future, and the voice of young people in the peace conversation. And it was at this event that our president, Karma Elliott, announced an exciting partnership with the National University of Singapore's Asian Peace Program. And this will see the establishment of a one-year research-based fellowship position at the APP with a focus on discussion and research about peace building and conflict on ASEAN and SEA. In addition, UWC SEA students will participate in an essay competition, which will empower them to write and publish papers on topics of peace. This partnership will play an important role in UWC SEA's ambitions to reimagine education, with APP and UWC SEA united in their mission to understand and promote peace and peace-building initiatives in Asia. Which leads us to tonight's event and the launch of our IfP Toolkit, our flagship program on peace building, which we will learn more about in the evenings as the evening progresses. In conjunction with this launch, we would like to announce the publication of a white paper entitled Educating for Peace, UWC SEA's Mission for Future Peace Builders. The paper captures the college's expertise on teachings of peace and details ways in which peace can be defined, practiced, and taught through peace education frameworks. Our audience tonight will be among the first to receive a copy of this publication. Now, on to this evening's program. We'll just give you a little glimpse of what we have in store. We'll have a brief presentation on peace education at UWC. We'll watch a video to give those of you who may not be as familiar with the program a bit of context and background to IfP. And then we're really excited to have a number of our alumni and former and current IfP program leaders to discuss their experiences and perspectives with the program. Then what we're all here for, to learn a little bit about the IfP Toolkit itself. And that's when we're going to open things up for a discussion with all of you in terms of idea sharing about how this toolkit will be of benefit to you and your communities. And then we hope to wrap things up between 8:10 and 8:15. So again, we've got a lot to cover tonight, and we do need you to stay alert and pay attention because we are going to ask you for your thoughts and ideas towards the end of the program. So without further ado, I'd now like to turn things over to Nick Alchin. I don't know if Nick needs introduction, but I will give him one regardless because he deserves that. But he has taught in holistic, values-driven schools since 1995, first teaching theory of knowledge and mathematics at UWC Dover, and subsequently at the International School of Geneva in Switzerland. After working as director of IB at Sevenoaks School in the UK, and as Dean of Studies at the Aga Khan Academy in Mombasa, Kenya, Nick returned to Singapore to lead a team establishing the UWC East High School in 2012 as high school principal. He was appointed deputy head of East Campus in 2016 and took up the position of head of East Campus in January 2021. He's also many other things to many people, including a compassionate and genuine caring leader. I'd now like to turn it over to Nick to set the stage for tonight's discussion.
Thank you very much, Renee, and welcome again to everybody here. I'm so happy to be hosting this session and talking to you a little bit just now. When I think across my now 29 years in education overall, about all the things, events, programs that are genuinely life-changing and genuinely transformative, because a lot of things claim that, IfP is top of my list, frankly. I think it's a remarkable institution, and I think that we're here tonight not just to honor and recognize that and honor the contribution that so many of you here on this call have made, but why I'm so excited to launch something that I've been thinking about for a number of years, which is how can we spread the word of IfP? How can we amplify the impact of this very concrete, transformative way to unite peoples, nations, and cultures for peace and a sustainable future? And I'll say a bit more about that in a minute. But just in case any of you are sort of tuning in to find out more about IfP, I know many of you know a great deal. IfP is a year-long course that supports students to develop the knowledge, skills, and understanding that will support them to become peace builders in their lives, in your lives, and in your communities while at school, but critically across the arc of their lives and their careers, whatever that might be. It's not just abstract, it's intensely real and practical, because it culminates in a trip overseas to work with youth who've experienced conflict or who represent different sides in a conflict. So for the My Sot in Northern Thailand IfP, for example, our students, many of you, have worked with refugees from Myanmar, child soldiers from ethnic rebel groups, Rohingya activists, Thai students, and human rights students from Yangon. In Timor-Leste, the focus might be more on empowering youth who've experienced domestic violence. And in the past, IfP conferences have also taken place in Sri Lanka, Bali, Singapore, and actually run by many of you independently after that in various places around the world. Now, when you look at the groups then that might be found in these situations, it's not hard to imagine tensions, misunderstandings, resentments, and even anger that might be found in such a group. But our IfP facilitators work with the group over 5 days, engaging in activities, service, games, and leading people to see past stereotypical labels, to see the other side of a conflict, to see the human face of people who may be in a different group to them. It's a genuinely remarkable experience, and it's our mission in action, if anything is. And I think its power comes from the fact that it addresses the 3 ways that we think about peace at UWCSA entirely. The first way we think about peace is about personal peace. The journey for many IfP delegates to understand that conflict cannot be reduced to goodies or baddies, usually with them being on the good side and the other side being on the bad side, is challenging. It requires an acknowledgement that we all have agency in the system that we're part of. It confers personal responsibility, and it leads to those moments of transformation. Secondly, IfP is about community and local peace, because it works in a community where positive peace needs developing. And positive peace is the existence and pursuit of attitudes and institutions and structures that create and sustain peaceful societies by the removal of violence. So it's not just about the absence of war, it's about creating the right conditions around people so that there is genuine development and peaceful society. And that's a skill that can go well beyond IfP. That's a skill that we can use in our workplaces, with our families, in our communities, anywhere. And we know that the local groups that spring up after an IfP conference, driven by the local delegates, are driving peace in the local community. Thirdly, IfP is about global peace. Because the conferences take place in genuine places of global tension, it's really embedded in a global context. When we ran the India-Pakistan one many years ago, the ambassadors to Singapore were involved. The MySOT trip involves many participants from the Mylar refugee camp. And as we know, the refugee issue is only growing globally. So it's a concrete manifestation of the global issues that are faced around the world. So that's IfP at UWC. And you know, what's happened over the years is really remarkable and something that we want to capitalize on. And I'm coming back now to what I said at the start. We've been asked by many other schools, how do you run IfP? How does it get going off the ground? So short of saying you should ask Skilly, who's on the call here, we've tried to share resources. We've tried to say this is our thinking, but we've never really had a resource we could share as such, a coherent message to say this is what it looks like. As in so many things, the magic is in people's heads. It's in your heads, and it's not something that can be easily transferred. But we thought that we have a duty to share and a privilege to encourage sharing. And so we've put some time and some thought into how can we create something which would allow, and here's the dream if you like, IfP to become the next MUN, known in international schools around the world, a badge of honor if you're involved in it, and in a network of peacemakers who can get together, speak a common language, and all work toward a common aim. So that's really what we're trying to launch today, the beginnings of those steps. And we're really happy that you're here to hear about it and maybe think about joining or contributing, spreading the word in some way. The IfP Toolkit contains all the details to set up this program. It contains what to think about, from teaching activities and resources to health and safety protocols, timelines, trip details, and a detailed commentary to set it in context. We know that any school starting IfP has a daunting journey ahead of them, and this is a good start. We know that it'll have to be contextualized. There's no formula for this. Every school will do it a different way, but this is a good start. You know, in teacher speak, it's the syllabus, the scheme of work, and teacher support material all rolled into one. It contains videos and lesson plans, and we're actually going to put some resources so that we have a member of staff, Louis, who many of you will know, who's available to other schools to offer one-to-one support if people are trying to start the program. It is super, super exciting, and it's a real honor to be launching it today. So there's a few facts. I know many of you will know those, but of course, you know, the facts don't really capture the magic. And so I'm going to pass back to the team now to look at some of the emotional aspect and the flavor that really comes across from such a transformative project. Back to you, Renee.
Thanks so much, Nick, for setting the scene. We now actually have a video that we'd like to share with you to, again, give some more context and bring it to life. Thanks, Nick. Here we go.
Initiative for Peace is a fantastic program. It educates our students to become facilitators, and then a selected group will travel to a country of conflict where they are going to work with the youth in that country and pass on those values that they have learned through their training program and basically through our school and our mission to promote sustainable peace.
The best part of my IfP experience was I was able to step out of my comfort zone and be active and participate in a lot of activities and share my own knowledge or the knowledge that I have learned from the IfP to my friends and the Timorese in order to change people's opinions or their thoughts in a positive way so that they can actually do something in their community in order to create peace and sustainable future.
So one of the great things about IfP, one of the things that makes it really special, is that all students who do IfP get at least 6 months of training from really fabulous speakers. You don't have to go on one of the overseas conferences to benefit from this training and to learn how to be a peace builder. We have a variety of trainers who come in to work with our students from a huge range of organisations in the field of peace building, including organisations such as UNICEF, refugee NGOs, project managers, people who work with the UN Security Council. All of them help work with our students for IfP.
So the first Initiative for Peace conference, the one that I was involved in 2002, focused on the conflict between India and Pakistan over Kashmir. The student facilitators, we were quite nervous, and I remember an intense energy during that week, which I think gripped all of us. And we went through a series of icebreakers, a series of activities with the clear aim not to suppress any of the difficult questions or the hurt that some of them carry within them that the conflict has done to their families, but then to move an understanding where perhaps the group allegiances, the nationality, the I'm from this part, you're from that part, the us and them could be left aside. And the participants really start commonalities in culture, see commonalities in suffering that the conflict has caused on both sides, and just see the human face behind the label of the other, the enemy, the other sides that has been wronging us for so many years.
My teacher came up to me and he said, "Look, Vani, you're from Singapore. I heard you're going to go back home for the summer, so the UWC in Singapore is actually organizing this conference." I think I expected it just to be like a little youth camp or a training of some sort, but it was just exceeded my expectations because the group of speakers that came from all over and the kind of people you are exposed to, the conversations, and then you have youth from India and youth from Pakistan, and as the facilitator I was registering them and talking to them, and they didn't want to room with each other or they weren't even friends to begin with. And to see all of that give way in just a span of 1 week, and by the end of the week they were friends, they were eating together, forging friendships, making travel plans and dancing together, and I know for a fact that even after the conference a lot of these friendships continued, so it wasn't just like a 1 week summer camp thing. So definitely exceeded my expectations.
IfP has brought into me an international understanding about the global concern and how, as a young people, to start shaping the sustainable future and sustainable peace in Timor-Leste.
I suppose it's a well-known activity, and I hear that lots of students are sort of applying to join every year, which is fantastic. But when we started, there was no track record. I wouldn't say there was resistance, but it was hard to convince people at times that this was going to work. And it was also a political risk potentially for the college. And particularly around 2002, the conflict was flaring up again in Kashmir just around that time. We did, in our preparations for the conference, we invited both the Pakistani and the Indian ambassadors to speak to us on separate occasions about the conflict. So for us as the facilitators to learn more, and those were very critical moments because we've really felt the cold political shoulder. So you felt that, you know, this was going a little bit beyond fundraising for an orphanage or all the other wonderful things that UWC does, but this was somewhat of a step further into something more political, potentially more risky as well. But Initiative for Peace always struck me as an extremely powerful idea. This notion of bringing people face to face and focusing on the common humanity. To me, that's sort of the very powerful core idea of Initiative for Peace.
We would like people to support the program, and if they could become actively involved in any capacity, that would be a fantastic thing to do. And I think it will not just benefit our students, but it will benefit many people around the world.
IfP is a really life-changing experience for me.
IfP to me is about conversation.
IfP to me is where facilitators and delegates learn a lot from each other.
IfP is expanding horizons and changing perspectives.
IfP to me is where the UWC motto comes to life.
IfP is something that develops my personality.
IfP to me is peaceful.
IfP for me is life-changing.
That really captures the spirit so beautifully. And I think you can tell maybe by some of the familiar faces you see that the video is a few years old, but I think the spirit of it stays the same. And again, it laid that foundation. So I'd now like to invite Alchin to take the center stage here. She's going to engage some of our former participants and coordinators in a discussion about how they, their perspectives and experience with IfP. So over to Ellie.
Thank you, Renee. It's absolute pleasure to be here and talking about something which is very important to me, which is IfP, and to see that video and so many people I know and care about in action as part of IfP was really thrilling. I'm here to introduce to you and to ask a few questions to four alumni, their former staff, their former delegates and facilitators and students and staff members. We have Q, we have Kim, we have Felipe, and we have Debbie. So I'm absolutely delighted to speak to them now, and I'm just going to ask each of you if you could maybe introduce yourself, just give a little bit of brief background about your relationship with UWC, and let us know where you are currently located and what your current role is, and then we'll get into some juicy conversation around IfP and what it's meant to you and how it's changed you. So introductions first, maybe Q, we could begin with you, and then we'll follow up with Felipe, and then Debbie, and then Kim at the end.
Sawadee krap, everybody. Assalamualaikum from Chiang Mai. I'm currently a student. I'm studying peace building, focusing on peace education. I was UWC SEA educator and part of the IfP team from 2004 to 2015.
Hello, everyone. Yeah. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for the invitation. My name is Felipe Fontesilla. I graduated from UWC SEA Dover campus in 2014. And I am currently based in Valdivia, in the beautiful city of Valdivia in Chile. And I work as the director, the president. I'm actually the president of the Center for Social Reality Studies. And I work as the executive director of another NGO called Saberes Colectivos.
Is it me now? Hi, everyone. You will know me as Giovanni, but people who was with me at UWC know me as Debbie. I'm from Timor-Leste. I was actually an IfP delegate in 2010 when I was still in high school. And then when I went to UWC as a scholar from Timor-Leste, I was very much involved in IfP for 3 years since my FIB school until 2015 when I graduated from UWC. Currently, I'm located in my own country, in Dili, and I'm working at UNDP Timor-Leste as a monitoring, evaluation, reporting officer.
Good morning from Iowa, everybody. My name is Kim, and I graduated from UWC in 2016. I was there for 5 years as a scholar from Cambodia. And then I took a gap year, I went back to Cambodia and brought IfP there, which is still running right now. And I am now a sustainability fellow at Luther College in Iowa, USA.
Thank you so much. So let's get into the questions. I've got a number of interesting questions here. And the first one really is about the sort of, I suppose, your kind of experience of IfP when you were at UWC. And perhaps some of the key elements that were most powerful for you personally. What were some of the things that really affected you about IfP, and in what capacity were you involved in IfP? We've had a few of you mention being delegates and leaders and so on, but what are some of the really special things about IfP that were most powerful for you in your experience? Who wants to start? Maybe we start with Philippe.
Yeah, okay. Well, it's really interesting for me. IfP had a very personal impact while I was at UWC because it was a place of refuge for a lot of things that I really wanted to do while I was at UWC. I found a space where I could channel in my passion for education, for peace, which at that time I didn't quite know what it meant. So it also gave me a lot of theory and a lot of different ways to frame peace building, conflict resolution, which were things that I was originally interested in when I joined UWC. So it was a space for me to channel all of that energy in. It gave me a lot of professional skills that I use to this day as well. All of the facilitation training that we did, the curricular development that we did in building the program of the conference are professional skills that I use to this day. And the possibility to get to know a community, a history, a conflict, a people that before joining UWC wasn't even in my radar. The conflict in Timor-Leste, which is where I facilitated a conference in 2013, was something that was so out of my radar. In Chile, we don't have history that is focused on Southeast Asia at all. So it was a possibility to learn about a new history. And the way that it was framed, it was so humane that it gave me the possibility to rethink the ways in which I understood colonialism, in which I understood people's conflicts, in which I understood ethnicities and race. So it was really, really powerful to have that opportunity. I think it was a really big privilege that led me onto my further experiences in university, my gap year, and now in my work. So yeah.
Thank you, Felipe. I mean, I think what was heartening as a teacher is to hear how it was a real context for further learning for you, but a real home for lots of ideas that you were wanting to explore anyway, and a place where you could really develop that thinking. It's interesting that you were at Timor. I'm going to go to Kim now, because I know, Kim, you and I went to MySOT together, didn't we? Can you tell us a little bit about what IfP meant to you, perhaps your experience in MySOT, what similarities were there with things that Felipe said, and maybe where did it take you perhaps in ways that were perhaps different than the things he's talked about? And then we'll come to Debbie after that.
Yeah, thank you, Ellie. So I really resonate with what Felipe said, actually, of how the impact of IfP affected him. So yeah, before IfP, really, I heard of the word peace, but I didn't really know what it meant. I mean, I'm not fully sure what it means now either. I'm still learning. I think that's part of, you know, being a peace scholar, is always trying to find ways to understand it more. And without IfP, I would have never come to college and wanted to study peace. So I did study peace in my school, one of the only few students who do that, and would love to continue doing more studying, but also more practicing as well. But I think one of the most special things about IfP for me, and
Kim, we can't hear you. Is your mic? Can you check your mic? Oh yeah, we can hear you.
Can you hear me now? Yeah. Okay, sorry. My internet doesn't seem to be the most stable before 6 a.m. it seems like, which I never experienced before because I was never up this early. But hopefully it doesn't cut out again. But yeah, so I don't know where you heard me last, but the most special part of IfP for me was the empowerment part, where in both the time that I was at UWC training, I felt empowered to know that I have the power to do so much.
We've lost you again, Kim, but I think what we'll do is we'll go to Debbie and we can come back to you, Kim. Maybe it'll settle down. But I think it was a great point to pass on, that idea of empowerment, and how, because I think a central premise of IfP is really about empowering youth to connect with other youth. And that idea of student agency is central. So Debbie, perhaps we can go to you to talk about perhaps ways in which IfP has been powerful for you. Is that idea of empowerment and agency, was that significant for you, or were there different things that you took from the program?
It definitely is, Ellie. Like what Felipe and Kim said, I was actually never heard. I mean, I heard about the word peace all the time, and you know, as a young person, usually write the word peace in my notebook. You know, wanted Timor-Leste, because when I first joined IfP in 2010, in 2006 we actually had a crisis in Timor. It was a political crisis, and there it was, you know, something that as a young people had never seen. I mean, we were in a crisis, in a political crisis, like we were invaded by Indonesian for 20 years before then. But then for us to be actually involved when we were in our teenage years, that was something that we were, you know, like really see with our own eyes. So yeah, so like you said, like agency and being empowered as a young person through the through the IfP conference was really something that, you know, that I still remember until now. As a young person, when I was still in high school, there was never an activity like IfP where all the young people, you know, are gathered together and talked about what conflict is and how, because at that time, you know, East Timor was actually labeled internationally as a post-conflict countries. So like, how can we actually get out from this, you know, conflict situation? How can we rebuild our nations? and it has to be involved, like young people has to be involved in that context as well. So through IfP, like not only as from my high school, but there were a lot of students, not only from high schools, but also universities. And even though it was only in Delhi, but there were a lot of students would like to participate in that conference. That was the first conference held in Delhi. And we had a lot of participation. And I could see, that was the first time that I was actually sitting and, like being in the middle of a group of young people, not only from Timor, but also around the world, from, facilitators from United World College, Singapore. So it was something that was really empowering, like we were given the chance to talk about what we had, the thoughts and aspirations that we as a young people really want to see it to happen in Timor-Leste. So not only hearing from colleagues that, like friends that I usually see in high school, but also from students and who are also from different universities and high schools. And again, like the agency, like it really gives you the power, and it gives you like, being an agent for peace. And that what really, resonates with me throughout my my UWC like experience. So all these 3 years when I was in UWC, was very much involved in IfP as a co-facilitators for the first year, and then facilitator for the second, third year, until I graduated in 2015. And so if anybody asked me like, what UWC meant to you, I literally just connected it to IfP, because UWC is IfP to me. And this is also something that I, carried through my 4 years of college experience in the US. And we had a lot of like UWC students in my university as well. So a lot of, some of the UWC students in my college, like they haven't really learned about, IfP. And that, at the 1 year where I was sort of like with some of my friends organizing, activities to celebrate the International Peace Day in college. So it's something that was like, I was like, wow, I actually carried this whole UWC thing, IfP thing until college, and I still haven't forgotten about it. And then I think the one thing that really that had a really big impact on me with UWC is when I did my UWC fellowship, the Davis Peace Fellowship, when I came back to Timor with one of my friends from St. Lawrence, and we were renovating, clinics and getting some facilities, renewed at the Barupite Clinic. Barupite Clinic is also really involved with UWC, with the Gap Year program. So that was something that I was really happy to have that, done in Timor. Because talking about peace, it also relates to, it relates to a lot of like sector here in Timor. So not only like, having youth, the young people involved, but also I remember at the time when I was a delegate, as well as at the time when I was a facilitator, like health, for example, is something that health and conflict, and health is something that, like something they always like raise up in discussions and debates. So coming back to contribute to peace in the community in a small way through this Davis Peace Fellowship by renovating one of the community clinic in Timor was something that I was like really happy and proud of doing it. And then when I graduated from St. Lawrence University, I also had I got a fellowship to teach like Mesot. Wow, I never expected it. It's also the place where IfP was also held in the same year. And out of surprise, the week when I arrived, I heard that IfP was there, like the IfP colleagues team was there. So I immediately contacted you, and I wanted to go and see and bring one of the students that I thought was a potential UWC student and scholar. So I brought her there, and for her to actually participate even just for a day was really something that I was really happy to be able to connect back with UWC. So yeah, like the being empowered and having the agency was something that was really powerful to me.
Thank you. I mean, I think if I can jump in there, I think what you've said, Debbie, is you've hit the nail on the head with one of the things that's most powerful about IfP, which is that creation of a network of young people who are working for peace, who then go on to do some other work, peace building work with that. And I know that, you know, I know Kim also carried on with her peace building work, and so did Philippe. I'm going to turn to Q now. Louis said I can go on a little bit over time, so I am going to do that. But Q, you know, would you like to share what, you know, IfP has meant to you, and what you think makes it so powerful and transformative? And you know, because it is very powerful, isn't it? And it really does change how students and people feel about themselves and about other people. What do you think the sort of IfP magic, and what's it meant to you?
Well, what it's meant to me, first, education is a force to unite people, nations, cultures for peace and a sustainable future. That was introduced to me when I was 16 years old, when I went to UWC PC. And when I became an educator in 2000, I've been living that. Especially even when I was teaching in the local school in Singapore, in a public school, I tried to practice that. When I came to UWC SEA and meeting Skilly and Tanaz and knowing that IfP, I just, you know, it was the perfect storm in a positive way for me to be able to pursue that for 12 years of my life. What makes it so powerful and transformative? Well, that's my dissertation. I can go on and on, you know, if anyone's interested. I think though, ultimately, when I look at, I've spoken to 48 former IfP members, and every single person spoke about that. What's my impact? What's my impact for the world in what I'm doing now? And it doesn't matter what profession or vocation that our graduates are in. Every single one of them, from bankers to UNDP members like Debbie, those who are still in school, every single one of them said, what's my impact? What am I doing with my life right now? And to me, that's a really powerful testament of the impact that it's a sticky lesson. And I've spoken to graduates from 2006 all the way till 2018, and it's a whole range. Yeah, so when my dissertation's done, I can you know, I can share more.
Yeah, well, so we've had some people on the chat asking, please, can they have a copy of your dissertation? So I'm gonna bounce back to Kim now. I'm hoping, Kim, your sound is working okay. I'd love it if you could maybe say a little bit about what you did in Cambodia, because you did, you know, run your own IfP conference after the, you know, graduating from UWC. Would you like to say a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. I'm back. Hopefully I don't go back, leave again. Yeah, so after I graduated from UWC in 2016, I went back home and I remember just feeling this fuel that I got from facilitating the conference in Mesat, that this is not enough for me, like I want to do more. And I wanted to do more with young people, and I wanted to do more with people from my hometown, where I knew I had never felt that empowered like me, but I knew had so much potential to do so much for our country. And so that's why I went back, and because IfP and UWC has really explained to me that in order to create a sustainable change, you need the people in those areas to do it themselves, and to have tools and empowerments to do it. And so I wanted to bring that back home. And so that's what the first UWC, the first IfP in Cambodia was trying to do, was trying to bring Cambodian youth together. And we had some other youth from other Southeast Asian countries who came as well, but bring them together, go through these activities and workshops that we did in IfP, and find out what gifts they have to the world, and maybe what are the gifts that they are searching for, that the other youth around them can give. And so I'm really glad of how it went. It was quite stressful to kind of, start something like that. And Louis was there to witness how stressed I was, but I thank him for being there. But yeah, and I'm just so glad that it's still going right now, because my whole idea was trying to get young people to feel the same fire, to try and make it their own every year, and that's what's happening. I would love to see more young Cambodians doing the leading in this and in many other things, but it's a great start right now to have still the connection with UWC SEA students to do it. So yeah, so I'm just really glad that it happened, and that I went through that challenge to make it happen, but it would have not happened with all the supports that are in this room today as well.
Thank you, Kim. And I think it's you're absolutely right. It's that sort of desire to kind of give back and sort of pass on the fire to the next group of young people is something very powerful. And in fact, that's happened quite a lot. From the MySOT conference, a lot of the youth who were delegates in the series of workshops there went on to run their own peace conferences, which, of course, when one looks at Myanmar now, it's very concerning what's happening, and so important that young people are kind of working together to kind of discuss peace and so on. I'm going to just briefly pop back to Felipe for one final word before we head over to Louis. But in the meantime, this is for everybody out there who's watching and listening to this. Please get your questions ready, add them to the chat, because we will be coming back to this group for a Q&A later on in the session after Louis launched the toolkit. So Felipe, over to you just for some final words, and then I'll hand over to Louis to introduce us to the toolkit.
Yeah, thank you so much, Ellie. So yeah, I just wanted to add a little bit to my previous answer, that I think one of the things that was really important to me that I got from IfP was the reflection on my positionality when doing any kind of work with communities. So from my time at UWC, I went into a gap year in India to work with the Akshara Foundation as part of the gap year program that UWC SEA offers. I've also worked with communities in Bosnia and Herzegovina doing peace education, which is part of what I studied at school. And back in Chile, I've also had the possibility to work with different groups in conflict. We've had couple of civil uprisings over the past few years that have resulted in very violent conflicts. And as part of the organization that I work for, we've worked with different groups of people doing youth capacity building. So the thing that was so magical about IfP and that I'm so grateful for is that it didn't have the hero complex, the white savior complex, that it's generally accompanied by any kind of aid work that is done in the world, and with the positionality where you go to save someone, right? And what we really did was to create a space to enable dialogue and discussion amongst a group of people, to let them shine, to offer them a space to be themselves. That to me was really powerful because it was what I needed at that moment as well. I think that my personal UWC journey was really difficult with ups and downs. And it was really important for me at that time to have a space where I could bloom, where I could blossom as the beautiful flower that I came to become. Yeah. But it was really powerful to have that opportunity to really be running around, working with youth, having conversations, playing music. It was such an all-inclusive experience that was so centered around offering folks, both facilitators, delegates, teachers, a space to be themselves outside the general boundaries of whichever system they're in. And that to me was really going to become a part of the center that I base my working. These days, aside from the work that I do for the Center for Social Reality Studies, I'm coordinating the programmatic construction of a government campaign for one of the political candidates. And I'm the methodology coordinator for the participatory processes. And a lot of things that I learned at IfP, I am seeing that are very applicable to the work I'm doing these days. It's just a space for people to be themselves. When you're working on constructing a government program, you really want to hear what people have to say, and for that, you really need to construct a space where people can be themselves. You need to think about methodologies that allow people to feel validated, listened to. And I think that to me has been really at the core of everything I do, both that I did in university and that I'm doing these days in my work.
Thank you so much. And that mention of methodologies, I think, brings us very nicely to Louis and the toolkit. So I'm going to hand over to Louis to introduce the toolkit to everybody, please, Louis.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to keep this bit nice and short so that we can get back to these guys who I just want to listen to them. So yeah, I'm just going to briefly introduce the toolkit, its purpose, show you where you can get it, and then really, you know, it'll be up to you if you're interested to go and have a look, really. So this IfP toolkit was created in response to a few things and has a few purposes. Number one, it's to try and document some of the things you know, that we do on the IfP program, so that we've sort of captured it and we can build upon it in future years. So in that sense, it's to support UWC SEA staff in implementing the program. And the key word here is support, right? It's there if it's needed, and it might not be needed. It's also there to support other schools in implementing the program. And again, it's support. If you don't know where to begin, there's something there that you can take and work with and contextualize and make your own. The other purpose is to support UWC SEA alumni like Kim. Now Kim didn't have a toolkit, but you know, she had lots of experience, but you know, it's hopefully reduces a potential barrier to students like Kim doing this work. And the other one is also to support delegates who have been to conferences, so that they also have a resource there to use. So a few things there. In terms of the actual resource, I will share my screen and show you where to get it. So here we go. We will share this link afterwards, and this is just a little page where you can go, and there's a multimedia page which sort of helps give you a bit more information about IfP. So if you've it's been a bit of a whirlwind today, please go there, and it has some headlines about the program, a few videos for you to watch, a few testimonials. See Debbie there, Ellie, Kim, a former delegate, another student, and yeah, just some resources for you to play around with. And then the toolkit itself, if you sign up, you'll be taken. Oh, sorry, it's the wrong one. You'll be taken to something that looks like this. And basically it's a Google Doc within Google Docs within Google Docs. And this little front page will help you navigate the toolkit. It's indexed, there's sections, If you're short on time, you want a certain thing, hopefully you can read the headlines and find it, so you don't have to read everything. Oh, apologies. Someone just ringing in the background. Live events, this is what happens. Basically, there's a few sections. One is introduction, key concepts, and a scheme of work. So really, if hey, I just want a scheme of work that I can get started with, hey, take that and run with it. There's information about designing and implementing your own IfP program, supporting students to make conferences, and just a repository of resources built over the years by IfP staff. So lots of people contributing to the resources that have been put there. And there's the Jar and K activity that Kim referred to in the chat, which was powerful for her. And then also this section for further reading, if you want to dig a bit deeper into some of the concepts. And these are some great resources that have been integral into the design of this toolkit as well. So that's it really from me. And I know we'll share the link afterwards for you to sign up for that. And yeah, if there's any questions in the chat, I'm happy to answer them. I'll be the person when you sign up, I'll be the person to sort of email you and say hi and connect you to the right people, whether it's current IfP staff at Dover, UWC Dover and East, or other people around the world like Kim. So yeah, I think that's it from me.
Right, I think it's back to me to sort of direct any questions that people might have to the panelists or to Louis about the toolkit question. I'm sure that there's lots more that I've got to ask them, but I'd like to give you an opportunity to ask any questions. There's lots in the chat going on about Jar and K. Well, I feel like I should do a shout out to the team that I worked with in Kenya, because they were the ones that gave me the Jar and K when I brought it to UWC. So it actually came from a university in Canada via Mombasa to Singapore, and is now being used and is one of the most powerful activities that we use in IfP. So I'm just waiting to see whether there are any questions specifically that people have got. Here. Okay, while we're waiting for any questions to come in, I'm going to ask Q something which I didn't ask earlier because I thought we might be out of time. Q, I wonder if you can tell us a little bit about what you're doing now. And I know you're a student of peace studies. I know it's a little bit difficult, some of the things you're not able to talk about in too much detail. But could you maybe tell us a little bit about how the IfP has informed your work and your study in peace studies in your current context?
It's everything, really. And in the first semester of my studies, as I was reading some of the most influential thinkers, I was thinking, oh, we did all these things. And oh, I wish I had read all this so that we could have accelerated the evolution of IfP in UWC SEA by like 5 years. But then I was a physics educator and TOK educator. I didn't have time to read all these other things, right? So, and that's one of the things that I really want to do once I'm done with my studies is to share with the UWC movement, not just UWC SEA, and also with national education systems about those things that make for transformative learning to occur. I'll just share one particular anecdote. I was in a particular location in an area which is, let's just call it no man's land. I was invited there to be an observer and kind of like an advisor to an education department of a particular state-like entity. And as I was seated there, I saw this young man running around, putting the paper up, getting the stationery ready. And I was like, no way. So I went up there, tapped the young man on the shoulder. He turned around and he just went, what the? And he was like, "What are you doing here?" I said, "What are you doing here?" And we chatted. He was an IfP delegate. And I spoke to some of the senior members of the leadership group, and they said, "He's the future." And when he first came to IfP Masot, he wasn't smiling. He wasn't happy. I had a chat with him over lunchtime, and he said, "I've been fighting. My friends have been killed by the people of the community that I'm rooming with. You expect me to eat with him?" By the end of the week, I spoke to him again and asked him, "What are you taking away from this?" And he said, I'm tired of fighting. I just want peace." And what I take away from this is that roommate of mine, he's my friend. So whenever I think about this, I really get goosebumps, because I would like to think that 10 years down the road, 20 years down the road, this young man at a peacemaking table, not doing peace building, not at what we are doing, peace building, but at a peacemaking table, negotiating, whatever the case may be, looks across the table and does not see an adversary, but rather someone else who may have perpetrated violence, but who's also a victim of that violence, because we all are. And we have to work together.
Thank
and
you,
I have
Q.
so many other
sorry.
stories. Yeah.
No, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off. I think there's a bit of a lag here. I'm also aware that we've got lots of questions that are now flooding in on the chat. And so I'm going to try and open it up a little bit to some of those questions. A few of them are quite easy to answer, and some of them I'd like our panelists to answer, the ones that are perhaps a little bit more ethic. But on some of the easier questions, a few people have been asking about, how can, what's the target age group and audience? And I think the point is that it can be very flexible. So a lot of the resources, when IfP was initially run by UWC, it was done with 16, 17 and 18-year-olds. But we're using the resources now because we can't travel on the conferences because of COVID right now. We're using them on Dover with students who are in grades 9, 10 and 11, in grades 9 and 10. So they're sort of 14 and 15 and that sort of age group. So they can be adapted to younger students. Some people have been asking about primary schools, and other people are saying, how can adults get involved? Which is fantastic to see, and parents wanting to get involved. There's one question about national committees and whether or not they could run some of these events, and Philippe would like to, I think, answer that. But before we come to Philippe for that, there's another question from Jade, which is asking about if we had one piece of advice that we wanted to give to somebody who maybe wanted to adapt IfP, perhaps for a slightly different audience. And in Jade's case, it was younger students, but other people have been asking about adapting it for different communities. If you were going to take the resources, and this to anyone on the panel, if you were going to take the resources and adapt them for a different audience, what might be one starting point for you in doing that?
May I?
Yeah, Q, please do jump in.
I think the most important thing is the why. Why am I going to do this? Why are we going to do this? The how and the what follows from there, regardless of the age group, in my opinion. I'm currently asked to, for example, create a course on social emotional learning for a university in Singapore. And I've been talking to the university, this particular university, and so like, why? Is it just to a checkbox, or for SEL to be a competency to make your graduates more employable? Or are you truly wanting them to be more self-aware and have social awareness and can practice non-violent communication? So they are still not sure yet. So they're going to get back to me. So the reason why I say it's so important for that is because the what and the how may not be authentic to the mission, so to speak. And then it won't be truly a transformative peace education experience.
I think that Kim wanted to comment on that too.
Yeah, I quite agree with Q to really understand the motivation of why we're doing it. But to add on top of that, I would say, and again, this relates to what Felipe said before, but also what I learned from J&K is to, before you bring any of this or like trying to create, I don't know, do peace work or community building and things like that, we should try our best to learn about the community that we are going into, and ask the opinions of the people who are in that community, to see which part of this proposal of what you want to bring there is appropriate and will be fitting into their situations. So instead of coming in and saying, you know, I think this is a great idea, but I don't really know so much about you, and I'm just going to do it. Sometimes that can create more harm than good. So I would say, make the connections and the relationship with the people that you are wanting to bring this to first. Ask their opinions about it because they know their situations best. And then see which parts they would really appreciate and think that would be beneficial. And I have tried to take many elements from IfP into trying to do community building work in my college, and also outside of my college with people who are college students age, but also people who are older, actually just this past weekend. So I think it's very flexible what we have in this IfP model thing. A lot of the activities can be learned and can be impactful for many people. You just have to know why you want to do it and who you're working with, and then let the people you're working with take the lead as well. Yeah,
thank you, Kim. I think that's very, very powerful what you said. IfP is something you do with a community. It's not something that you do to them. And so that's very wise words. I think Debbie would like to jump in here. Debbie, over to you. What would you want to say on this?
Yes, thank you, Ellie. So yeah, like you and Kim said, like we really have to think, why do we want to do this? I remember when I was on my fellowship in Thailand teaching, I was literally hired to only teach English for the first and second semester. But then after I met, you know, Q and the IfP team in Maysod, it just brought me back that I have to do something maybe not different. If anything, that the school, because they didn't have many volunteers teachers, if anything, they would ask me to contribute to the migrant school that I was teaching at. I told them I want to do something like IfP. I told, you know, I called the school principal and I told him a little bit about IfP, and I brought one of the girls from school to meet the IfP team, and she came back and she said, "This, I only participated one day, and it's something that I really want to happen here in our school." So they gave me the opportunity to teach peace studies for the last semester in the school. And I want to mention that my students at migrant school were also from Myanmar, so they're coming from different ethnic backgrounds, religious backgrounds as well. And I have one student that was actually Muslim. He told me a story that when he first joined the school, he was a little scared because, with this whole conflict and situations, against Muslim, especially Rohingya refugees in Myanmar, it was something that he was so scared about, being at the school. But having that class, when we started, the first thing that I immediately thought of doing is in one of our second sessions, I started doing J&K, and the students were, they really listened to each other and they really talked out about, the conflicts that happen in Myanmar, even though they're migrated to Thailand and in the border of Maysod, but they think about their countries a lot. And, even though they're from different ethnic backgrounds, but they really, coming through each other through the dialogues and the discussions that we had through the small activity J&K in our classroom. Yeah, I just want to add that.
Thank you, Debbie. And I mean, some people have been asking about different ways to kind of get the people to network and about whether or not there are formal or informal mechanisms to do that. There is actually a Facebook group that was set up by Julia Schlettig, who is one of our my SOT students. And I don't know whether that's still going strong, but I know that it was very, very active for a while. So we'll check that out and we'll share that with you as well. I'm going to pass over to Felipe now, who one of the questions, Felipe, was about the role that national committees might be able to play in supporting this, and other adults who perhaps aren't necessarily educators who'd like to get involved. And you said you thought you might have some ideas to comment on that. Over to Felipe.
Yeah, thank you so much, Ellie. First, I resonated with what Q, Kim, and Debbie had mentioned about how to adapt the activities. I think the activities of IfP offer a lot of skill development. And a lot of them actually go towards developing skills in what I'm going to call intrapersonal peace and interpersonal peace, which are skills for how you interact with the world. So if you're working with first graders, I think that teaching them about nonviolent communication from a very early age can have incredibly good consequences for them as they shape the way they relate to others, they relate to their peers. So I think that taking a look at all of the activities and seeing what fits best, and also the social scientist in me is like, you need to conduct community investigations. You need to know what they want, what they need, what they identify are as their necessities, what are their realities, and how you can shape and build a curriculum for an IfP conference or any other kind of educational program based on what they identify as their necessities. And I say this because in my experience running short courses for United World Colleges, and for those who don't know, aside from the UWC schools, we have a lot of short courses, short, intensive, IB-free programs that are really, really interesting for students to join. It's a really, really interesting way for students to join the UWC movement. And over the past 2 years, I have been fortunate enough to conduct two UWC short courses, one in Germany called Building a Sustainable Future, and then another one in Mostar called Bridging Cultures, which is really like a peace education program for youth from the Balkans. And both of these initiatives are supported by the UWC national committees. We are working with the very early stages of working for a UWC short course in Latin America. So national committees can be actively involved in pushing the development of these initiatives. They're a really good way of helping young people understand, learn, share, develop UWC values, skills, and ideals. And depending on the national committee, I know all of them work differently. But for example, the German National Committee supports us in the development of UWC Building a Sustainable Future. They support us with the budget, they support us with grant applications, they help us, and they have helped us historically institutionalize the UWC short courses, which has been a kind of difficult process, because to turn 2 years of experience into 2 weeks might get a lot of people to be skeptical about what the impact of a program like this can be on people. But what we've seen with both IfP and UWC short courses is that they are indeed really, really, really impactful, right? These are things that we carry on to with our lives. We can see it with Q, Debbie, Kim, and I, who've gone into the peace studies field after we graduated from UWC, who continue on with further our knowledge and interest and passion on peace education in our professional careers. So I think that national committees can right now help and contribute by pushing their UWC alumni community to create this kind of initiatives, to create these short courses, to institutionalize new ways and different ways of being a UWC alum. And a lot of us, a lot of national committees have the institutional resources to do that. And if they don't, they can at least help articulate alumni who are interested in doing territorial work, to doing work in their home countries, in their communities, towards, you know, using education as a force to unite peoples, nations, and cultures for peace and a sustainable future. I also wanted to say the UWC mission, just finding the right spot to do it. But yeah, I think that those are some ways in which national committees can contribute.
Thank you. And I think it's great what you were saying there about the short courses, because, you know, what's great about the toolkit is that you don't have to take the whole lot and turn it into a massive, you know, week-long IfP conference. I mean, the conferences are very powerful, but they are also, as Kim said, you know, they can be quite stressful to run. It's very possible to dip in and take out individual activities and run them with your first grade class, or run them with a middle school class, or put you know, a few of them together to run a short course with some young people in your community. But I think the IfP spirit thing that's very, very important is this idea of working with a community and not coming in with a kind of, you know, we're going to do peace to you, but actually helping youth to be empowered, to find their voice and their place, to work with other youth to build peace. And that's fundamentally what IfP is all about. I'm very sort of mindful of time, and Renee, I don't know if we've got any, you know, time for maybe one more question, or whether you'd like me to sort of hand back to Nick now to wrap things up.
I think we've got such a great conversation going. I think one more question would be fine if people want to hang around, and it looks like we do. We have great audience participation, so let's go for one more.
Okay, so I'm going to ask this final question. I think maybe we'll finish with Kim, if that's okay, Kim. I'd just like to see if there was anything lasting that you wanted to say to somebody who might want to run their own IfP conference, because I know that you have run your own IfP conference. So what would be your message to somebody in our audience who's sitting there thinking, you know, I like the idea of this toolkit, sounds really cool. I'm working with a group of young people. There's some conflicts going on in our community. We'd like to do something about it. You know, what should we do beyond engaging with the community that we want to support? After that, what other advice would you have for them, just to kind of wrap us up, and then I'll pass back to Nick to finish this off.
Yeah, thank you. I'm honored to have the last word. Well, I think the advice I would give to somebody who's sitting right here and thinking about starting this on their own is probably the same advice I would give to anyone who want to start on the fitness journey, is just to start it. It's going to be hard. It's going to be challenging. There'll be ups and downs, but there's so much resources out there in this room right now, but also all over the world and in the communities that you want to work in that will make it possible. I think you have to be a little bold and sometimes a little naive to just believe that it will happen. You have to have that energy almost, and working with young people will give you that. A lot of young people, especially in places that don't have too many opportunities for these kind of things, they are hungry for things like this. And that really fed my fuel, and that really made me, you know, it's like, okay, it's hard and it's stressful, but I'm going for it. So I would just say, go for it. You have my support. You have the support in the people around you, which you don't probably know yet, but just say that you're going to start it and ask for help when you need as well. And just know that you don't have to do it all alone. Starting an IfP initiative in your home country doesn't mean that you do it yourself, like all alone. Something I learned that's really important is delegation of task and different works that needs to happen. So delegate that. Don't just think that you have to do it all. But yeah, I just say go for it. Reach out to anyone that you think can be of support. Reach out to me if you want to. Am I missing anything else that are in the questions too?
No, I think that's absolutely great. There was one final question where someone said, is there anyone we can bounce ideas off? And you've basically said, yes, me. But also, I think I think also Louis is very happy, to have a conversation. I mean, Nick mentioned that earlier. To have a conversation with any school or institution that's thinking about doing this. We didn't want to just put all the ideas in the toolkit and then just say off you go. We also want to sort of support, but the toolkit is a great way to kind of formalize and share. And Louis, is also saying he can connect everybody to the right people to speak to as well. I'm mindful of time, so I'm going to hand back to Nick to thank everybody and wrap up for tonight. Thank you.
Thanks, Ellie, and thanks for the whole panel, and thanks for everybody. I will be brief. I'm aware some of you have dinner to go to, and it's been a long day, I'm sure, but what an amazing evening. I wasn't sure how things would land here. This is something we've been wanting to do for some time. We wanted the IfP Toolkit not to be a thing that exists as a sort of reified thing out there, something that people would take and make their own and adapt, and it would be the start of a conversation. And already on the chat here, we've got we've got people saying, can it go to primary schools? Can it go to NCs? Can it be done in other international schools? Could it be spread over a network? And this is exactly what we were hoping. We want to share this thing that we know to be so wonderful widely. So thank you so much, everybody, for your enthusiasm. To close, it has been wonderful to speak with you, and I hope you've got as much out of it as I know I have, listening to the inspirational colleagues and alum here. We've always said, as a school, and I know other schools say this too, our success is not only to be found on campus. We're not about being good at school. Our success for our mission is to be found in the work that follows, in the lives of our alumni, and in the differences that they make in their communities. We know that IfP gives skills, understanding, experience of not just doing things beyond school, but having the courage to think, I can do this, I can make a start. You heard Kim talk there. It gives people the courage to look at what they want from their lives, as you heard Q say. And it gives people the courage to go and just make stuff happen, like you heard Felipe talk about. And the experiences, of Debbie and everybody else who's been involved in this, they're testament to that. We want to create something that will be globally impactful. We want to create something that will be impactful for communities, and we want to create something that will be impactful for individuals who can learn and who can transform themselves through this. I hope in 10 years that IfP will be done not just by schools, but by universities, by adult groups, by who knows what, in 1,000 places around the world, all of whom are looking to leave the world a more peaceful and sustainable place than they found it. And you're in at the start. I hope you'll be able to help us spread it. Thank you for your time tonight. Bye, everyone. We'll be in